Righty. Hello. Looks like we are live. Give me one moment to check settings, guys. Looks good. Good. Everybody can hear me okay? See me okay? As always, if there is any audio issues or buffering, let me know, but I think we are good. Welcome, everyone. My sincerest apologies again. I know we are running behind. I've got 5 spicy kittens I'm currently taking care of right now, and they have been a handful this morning. So I thank you for your patience, but I'm excited to dive in today. Hey, Zero. Hi. Northwest Wind. Hello, sir. Becca, Mariana, Milan Pop. Wonderful. Wonderful. Welcome, guys. We'll dive in here in just 2 seconds. I'd like to give it a second longer. Oh. Hi, Bailey. Hello, Yara. Hello, Anna. Francesca, hello, and thank you. Sincerely, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. You know what? Let's go ahead and dive on in. I know we'll have people joining us as we go, so all good. Let's just go ahead and jump in, get started. You all have been very patient, and I thank you again. Happy weekend. Happy Sunday. And I hope you're having a wonderful weekend wherever in the world you are. To those of you here in the US who are mamas, happy Mother's Day. And really for all the mamas around the world. But here in the United States, today is Mother's Day. So hope you're all having a lovely day, enjoying it to the best you can. Let me see. I'm trying to remember if there was anything that I wanted to announce or discuss. I don't think so. I have a video coming out following shortly after this live Q&A. Time got bumped back slightly, so it's going to be 12:30 p.m. Pacific time instead of 12. But I think it's going to be one that a lot of you will find helpful. I do. It's certainly answering questions that I get quite often, so heads up about that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. My goodness. Guys, thank you so much. Sincerely. Let me see. Where am I? Francesca, I believe you were first. Thank you so much again for the super chat. Hi, I saw SP in 3D and I asked him why we can't get back together. I know I shouldn't have, and he said, quote, I am single and living my life. We will only be friends and I will never change my mind. Can SP be stubborn to the law? Oh, I'm so sorry that you had that interaction. I know 3D circumstance can be rough, especially when people are saying and doing things that we do not want to hear them say and do. I mean, first off, number one, make sure that you are revising anything that is coming up, and any kind of conversation that is brought up. And I know it can be very tempting to want to bring things up in the 3D, want to talk to them, we're very accustomed to doing that. Most people are very used to just, hashing it out in the physical world. I don't recommend that, or at the very least, we want to be mindful of the state we are in before we jump on the urge to have a conversation that may not be ideal. So we really want to be paying close attention to what we are feeling, how we are assuming. Are we feeling anxious to do this thing? Like, maybe we should not. Or have the conversation and imagination the way that you would want it to go. And that's what I recommend, at this point. Make sure that you are revising it, and here in imagination, experience the conversation going differently. Can SP be stubborn to the law? I take it you mean, can your person like push back against you or push back against the law? Does it work on him? Uh, no, you are the operant power in your reality. You are the operant power. And that means that you are selecting and choosing and deciding, whether knowingly or not, we're always selecting and choosing what version of this person we are going to encounter, by what state of consciousness we are occupying. So, I mean, the short answer is no. Our SP cannot be independent or anything like that of the law. Nobody can. Everyone in your life is going to show up as you pushed out, and more specifically, your beliefs and assumptions pushed out. So whatever the belief and assumptions are, that is what we are going to experience in the 3D. I know it sucks. I know it can be painful. I know 3D interactions like that are not ideal. Make sure that you are revising. And next time, if you do feel an urge to want to have a conversation, a hard conversation, go into imagination instead. Have the conversation in imagination. Select the state where he is agreeing to this relationship. In fact, I would even go beyond that and continue to imagine as though you two are already together. But I would make sure to revise this and just know that no one outside of you has any kind of like control over you. Nobody is an exception to the law. And in your reality, as the operant power, you're always selecting the state of consciousness of experience, what version of them that you're going to encounter. Yeah. Happy Doggy Mom's Day. Yes, yes. Pet parents count too, of course. Fur babies count, of course. Francesca, thank you again. How long is time difference from manifesting to it showing up in the 3D? What is different between presumption and assumption in the law? Presumption and assumption, those words are pretty much synonymous with each other. What if we have a presumption, it's pretty much the same thing. An assumption is something that we believe to be true or know to be true, even without proof per se. Yeah. How long is time difference? That's going to depend. I know that's one of the $1,000,000 questions, is how long it's going to take for things to show up in 3D. It's going to be different for everyone. What I can say about the time it takes is that it is directly proportionate to the naturalness of it, the feeling of naturalness, the feeling of realness, so to speak, of it. So if your desire, what you are desiring, feels natural to you, it feels like a given to you, it feels obviously true, then it's going to show up a lot quicker than if we are, for example, double-minded. If we're going back and forth between fears and doubts and living in the end, fears and doubts and living in the end. It's that double-mindedness that usually keeps things dragging out, so to speak. Which is why it's so important to remember that this is all internal. This is all that we are doing here is internal. Because it's about the feeling of it. And by feeling, that's not emotion, but feeling of naturalness. When you think about you and your person together, when that feels so natural and so apparent and so obvious, it is all but guaranteed to happen very quickly. I hope that makes sense. No, you're not late at all. We're just getting started. I'm off to a late start. I have some spicy babies that were a handful. Oh, you guys are sweet. Thank you. All right, let me see. Tam, thank you for the super chat. Let me find your question. Hi, Missy. Is it correct that I just need to daydream just to be in the wish fulfilled state? But instead of thinking daydreaming is just fictional, I choose to believe those are real. Good question. Yeah. And that last part there is the important part. The last part of that question is the important distinction. A very common question that I get asked is, what is the difference between daydreaming and imagining, as in imaginal acts that actually leave impressions subconsciously? And the difference boils down to believability. A daydream feels good, it feels pleasant, it can feel really nice, but it's not going to feel very real. It's going to feel like a fantasy. It's going to feel like, oh man, if only that could be true, if only that would happen, but it's never going to happen, right? That it's that believability. An imaginal act, what we are imagining, feels very real to us. It should feel very true for us. Um, Best way that I could describe it. So yeah, all that we need to do is yeah, effectively daydream, but instead of thinking that it's fictional, we know it to be real. We accept that what we are feeling is real because it feels real. If it feels real, it is real. I hope that's not too confusing, but you are correct, Tam. You don't like daydreaming? Oh, well, you certainly don't have to. It is not a requirement. Sela, thank you for the super chat. I hope I pronounced that right. Sela? Hope I pronounced that right. My apologies if I didn't, but thank you for that super chat. I appreciate you. I am changing limiting beliefs to manifest a new version of my SP that is showing more constant affection. What set would I imply the concept of constant? Or how can I spin this belief for myself? Good question. So, changing the belief to be more constant affection from your SP, have it be something that is more consistent more often, I take it, versus inconsistent versus hot and cold, perhaps. What sat would I imply the concept of constant? Well, I mean, really, the first question you want to ask yourself is, how would it feel if SP was consistently showing you affection and adoration? If this was something that was just how he showed up as, if this was something that was taking place all the time, um, it would probably you would probably be feeling much more at ease. You would probably be feeling, of course, you'd be feeling loved and adored and cherished. I mean, all of these things imply, all of these feelings that imply that somebody is showing us the same kind of love and affection, right? We wouldn't be feeling that if we weren't experiencing that more consistently, because somebody who's showing up as hot and cold is that's going to feel not so good, right? um, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, living in the end with a feeling of just gratitude and feeling that loved would imply that this is something consistent, that this is something constant, that he is showing up, hot all the time instead of hot and cold all the time, if that makes sense. I hope this is making sense. But yeah, I would construct a scene that would imply that you are feeling adored, that you are feeling cherished, because there's already an implication there that he's showing up like that constantly. Let me know if you need me to elaborate on anything. Of course. Sarah. Welcome, welcome, and happy Mother's Day. It's now easier to identify and stop negative thought loops. Yes, when you have more control over your thoughts, is it a quick transition into the Sabbath? I would say so. hmm Absolutely. That is fantastic to see. Yeah. So it's becoming easier and easier to identify, faster to identify, and detach from those negative thought loops. Hell yeah, that's awesome. That's what that's what we want to see. That's what we want to note. Absolutely. Absolutely. Continue going. We want to notice the change. And that's one of the things I mean when I talk about the change of self. Becoming becoming better at identifying negative thought patterns, detaching from them, being quicker about moving out of a negative state, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's awesome to see. Kiara, thank you so much. Oh, it's Mother's Day in Germany too. Well, happy Mother's Day to the mamas in Germany. Hi, I have some fears that come up as persistent thoughts. What's the best way to handle them when they won't go away? They're opposite of my desire. Hmm. Yeah, intrusive thoughts are incredibly annoying. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know it can be maddening. I made a video a little while back covering this topic in more detail, so I definitely recommend checking out that video if you haven't yet. Basically, how to get rid of your negative thoughts or how to stop fearing your negative thoughts. If you search that in the search bar, it should pop right up. But the best way to handle them in the moment, like if you notice that thoughts are coming up for you, perhaps they're bombarding, perhaps you're noticing feeling anxious, right? You're starting to become aware that these thoughts are not ideal and it's making you anxious. The best thing to do in that moment, honestly, is number one, just observe. Observe what is coming up for you, observe how you are reacting to them. If it's a negative reaction, if you're noticing, again, perhaps you're feeling more anxious, perhaps you're feeling more angry or sad, whatever it might be, just observe what's coming up for you because it's through our reactions that give us a lot of information, give us a lot of feedback as to what we may still be holding as a belief or holding as an assumption, right? Um, so that's which is always a good idea to see and keep note of what state we're occupying. And of course, that's always going to change throughout the day to day, but where we are occupying dominantly. So note your reactions. I know some people teach to flip your thoughts, to try to combat your thoughts. I personally don't recommend doing it um, because it's easy to burn ourselves out. Flipping thoughts, for anyone who has tried it, gets exhausting. It gets exhausting, and it's just not the most effective approach. Observe it. If it's coming up with a feeling that's not ideal, even if you have a reaction coming up, like don't try to fight it. If you have to react, let yourself react. I know that seems counterintuitive. I know that seems like the opposite of what we want to do. But again, the alternative is to try to suppress the emotion or the feeling or reaction that's coming up for you. And suppression is never ideal, ever. So react if you react, and that's okay. You can always revise later. You can always come back once you're feeling better and revise it at the end of the day, even. But what you're going to notice is that the more that you go to the end, the more that you do embody that state of the wish fulfilled, going into sad, so going into the drowsy state and putting yourself in the place of that version of you desire to be, the more you live in the end, you should start to notice that those thoughts naturally go away on their own. Which is why the most important thing that we're doing here is the imaginal acts, living in that wish fulfilled, because you're naturally going to start to notice those thoughts change, those thoughts disappear without having to do anything, without having to combat them in the day-to-day. Yeah. But check out the video that I made talking more about it. I think you're going to find that one really helpful. Did you manifest getting a motorcycle? I did. I did. Cece, thank you so much. See question below. I'm just looking for your question really quick. Hi, Missy. I am learning to put myself first now. Good. I still watch tarot on my SP, but not in obsession extent. I get nervous when in 3D people ask me about my relationship status. Yeah, I know it can be challenging sometimes navigating the 3D while we're aiming to change the 3D, like while we are manifesting, for lack of better words. I know it can be sometimes tricky to navigate the 3D because the 3D moves slower than the 4D, right? I take it your question is, how do we handle those instances? Like if somebody asks you about your relationship status in the 3D, what should you tell them? I take it that's your question. If it wasn't, or if I'm off, let me know. I mean, you can say as much or as little as you would like. And that's an important thing to note. You are not required to talk about anything that you do not want to discuss. And if they are your friend, then that should be something that they respect. And we'll leave it alone. So you can, number one, you could just say, you know what, I'm not really in the mood to talk about it. And leave it at that. But there's not a need to lie. You don't need to say that something is a certain way in the 3D if it is not. Like that's not what this is all about. We don't need to try to pretend that the 3D is already the way that we want it to be if it is not. We can absolutely be honest or not say anything, while at the same time knowing that because I have already accepted this subconsciously, because I already know this to be true, because I've already experienced this in 4D, that it must become expressed, that it must become outpictured in 3D, right? 3D moves through linear time. It moves through series of events. The 4D doesn't. So I can go somewhere instantly in the 4D, but out here, typically things are going to happen in a linear fashion. So I know that, and hence why I don't have to allow myself to be upset about what's happening around me. Because if in here I've already accepted and experienced something different, then out here has to mirror that, right? I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you need me to clarify or elaborate on anything. Chrissy, thank you so much. You are so sweet. Thank you. What if there are multiple circumstances between you and your desire? Can you imagine each of the circumstances away? Or is that counterproductive? Good question. In multiple circumstances. So are you saying that there are like steps that need to happen in order to get to the end? Multiple circumstances between you and your desire. Yeah, so are you saying that a bunch of things need to happen in order to get to that wish fulfilled? I take it? Can you imagine each of the circumstances away? I would go to the end. I would It's easy for us to get caught up in the how. It's easy for us to get caught up in the conditions of the 3D, thinking that, okay, first I need to fix this problem, then I need to fix this problem, then I need to fix this problem. We don't have to deal with any of that. We don't have to, like, if we allow ourselves to go to the end, if we just go straight to that reality where everything is already the way that you want it to be, then whatever needs to happen, whatever conditions need to be met or changed, will happen. That's not our job to figure out. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry about needing to like systematically imagine each of the things away. Go to that place where you already have what you want, and all of the circumstances and conditions will sort themselves out. It has to. It has to. That's the law. Do, 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 do. Thank you so much, Anon. Hi, Missy. My problem is that I had a moment with SP and he invited me on a date, but a few days later he changed his mind. My mom told me he is gay. Now that's all I can think about, and it seems true. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, luckily here circumstances don't matter, right? Luckily here, regardless of what you were told or what might have happened, you don't have to accept that. You don't, and by that I mean you can, within imagination, see yourself as already on the date. You can already be on a date with SP in imagination. You can be coming back from the date in imagination, just feeling amazing for how wonderful of a date it was, right? So number one, I would revise that a little bit of information that your mom told you. I would make sure to, if especially if that is causing a lot of resistance to the idea of you and your SP together. Like if that's something which it sounds like is coming up frequently for you now, I would be sure to revise that conversation. But just know that ultimately, no matter what has taken place, no matter what's happened in the past, you can still absolutely go to that end. It really does not matter. It really does not matter. I would definitely check out the video that I have coming out this afternoon at 12:30 Pacific time, so a little over an hour-ish from now. I think it will be very helpful as it deals in situations like this or 3D circumstances. I think it will be helpful for you. But revise what what your mom said, and I would be sure to continue to persist in that revision until you are no longer thinking from it. And imagine that you went on the date and had an amazing time. Let me go back up. Thank you, Casey. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Hi, Missy. How do we know when it is done? I've been feeling really sure about SP and I, but I'm not sure if that's the euphoria feeling of loving slash wanting him. How do we know when it is done? Well, you'll know it is done because it will feel true. It will feel done. It will um it's not so much a euphoria feeling. I mean, yes, there can be moments that feel really good as far as emotions are concerned, but the feeling of it is done or knowing that it is done is pretty neutral. It's pretty, what's the word? It's peaceful. It can sometimes be subtle, right? It's not always this like big feeling or anything like that. Um, but yeah, you'll know it is done because it will, number one, you'll feel like you have no need to do any more techniques or continue to imagine. The way that your thoughts and reactions, they will line up with your desires, so you may not notice intrusive thoughts as much, or if you do, you're not going to be reactive to them. It's a very certain feeling. Like if you think of right now about something that you know to be true, it feels like that. But yeah, we don't. It doesn't need to be like a euphoria. Rest assured. Thank you, Kwame. Hey, Missy, I got a question to Neville's story with his wife. When his wife wasn't in love yet, or did he manifest his wife in a general way? Like he didn't know her yet and manifested just marriage. Um, when his wife wasn't in love yet. I'm a little confused by the question. I am so sorry. When his wife wasn't in love yet, or did he manifest his wife in a general way? So, I mean, he manifested his second wife by imagining, every night laying in bed with her. Like he put himself every night in the state of being her husband. And from his account, he knew as soon as he met her, like this is the woman I'm going to marry. Even though his circumstances at the time were pretty wild because he was already married to somebody else when he met his second wife, somebody that he had been estranged from for years, but somebody who did not want to divorce, somebody who did not want to make it easy for him. It's actually a pretty wild story. But regardless of the 3D circumstances and how impossible it looked that he would, get his first wife to agree to a divorce, nonetheless, he fell asleep every single night laying in bed with his wife, his second wife. So he, regardless of what was showing up, he went there. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, or did he manifest his wife in a general way? Well, he manifested her by going into imagination every night and having the experience of being her husband. Yeah. I forget what lecture he talks about that, and that's going to bug me. Might be Brazen Impudence. I gotta go find that lecture now. But it's actually a really incredible success story with a second wife. Let me see. Thank you, Francesca. You are sweet. Missy, when SB said, I am single, living my life, I won't change my mind, we will never be together again, where is that coming from? I've not thought those words, so why is he saying that? I will revise. Good question. So, and this is actually an important question. That's coming from perhaps a fear that you have. Perhaps there's a feeling or Maybe it's an anxiety that he won't want to get back together. He'll want to stay single and enjoy his life. Even if you haven't had even if you have not thought those exact words, if you've had the feeling or fear of him not wanting to get back together, if this has been sort of a presumption, perhaps, then that's what's going to reflect. That's what's going to reflect. So if we have the general belief about somebody, then it can manifest in all sorts of ways. It's not that we have to have like word for word the exact thought that they're going to say, right? So you want to ask yourself, like, is there a fear within me that my SP doesn't want to be together? And is there a fear that he's going to want to remain single? Yeah. And that's what we change. If there is that fear, that's what we are changing. Let's see. Thank you, Serenity Lake. My hubby and I want to be homeowners, but literally do not know where we want to live. We do know we want 0 humans in our vicinity. Plus, on paper, we are years away from being able to afford a home. What do you suggest? Good question. I love that. I mean, first, get clear on what you want. Get clear on, I mean, where, if it's not important to you, I guess doesn't really matter. But if you know that you want to be a homeowner, you know that you want to have a house, you know that you want to have land, I take it, no humans in the vicinity, which I can completely understand. And if there's anything else that perhaps you desire, like if there's a look to the place, like construct the house in your imagination, like prepare that place in your imagination. And if you are able, walk through that house as though you live there, because you do. Even it doesn't matter on paper what anything, like, doesn't matter what the 3D is showing right now. Even if it looks like it would be years out from being able to afford it, like, do not let that limit you in imagination. Don't let yourself say, oh, well, I can't afford my house, so I'm not even going to allow myself to imagine it. No, imagine it anyway. Enjoy it anyways. So get as clear as you can on what you want, like what you want the house to look like. If you do have an idea of where you want to live or a preference, get clear on that. Although if it doesn't matter to you, I wouldn't worry about it. And disregard whatever the statements say, the bank statements or paper, whatever. None of that matters. None of that matters. Truly. I love that you guys are all supportive of each other. This is so good to see. All right, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. I think that was all. If I missed anyone's super chat, let me know. Let me know. I think I got to everybody. But let me know if that was not the case. Northwest Wind. Missy, do you have any experience of revising something for your husband? I discovered my person went through something horribly traumatic in the long gone past. Oh. I love my person more than anything. I'm strong for them, but I've experienced a heavy weight and anger. I love them the way that you do your husband. It devastates me knowing they suffered. You are such a good soul. I look forward to a peaceful future with them where I hope the weight of the past can be something they're freed from. Revision for them right now is a bit overwhelming. Completely understand. Completely understand. I mean, to answer the original question, Absolutely, you can revise for somebody else. 100%. And I have done that for my husband. I've done that for many people, because I don't want to accept when people have told me terrible things that they've suffered and have gone through that has hurt them and affected them, especially somebody that you love that deeply. So 100% you can revise for them. If it feels overwhelming right now, because I understand the initial anger and I mean, it could produce a white hot rage to hear about ways that our loved ones were treated and how they have suffered. I get that. So if it doesn't feel like that might be possible right now, or that, trying to get yourself into a relaxed state feels a bit difficult to do right now, that's understandable. That's understandable. Um, but as you can, where you can, when you can, begin to see that differently. I mean, if it was something in which there needed to be a resolution, you can always imagine a resolution, things like that, without knowing the details. Uh, yeah, you can absolutely change something about someone else's past. Yeah, and I'm sorry. I know it's hard to get that kind of news. Oh, thank you, Jen Beach Shark. I'm good at general manifestations like being well liked or confident, but how the F do you guys manifest specific things, especially material things? Uh, sorry, just the wording. So, general manifestations, being well liked or confident, but how do you manifest specific things? I mean, it's the same way that you imagine for the general things, I guess, without knowing, exactly what you imagine or how you imagine, uh, whether that's inner conversations or visualization of scenes, you can absolutely construct anything in your imagination that's specific. Eh, that's the beauty here. There is no limit to what we can construct and what we can experience in imagination. That is the creative power. Whereas the 3D appears full of limitations and barriers and boundaries and things to set us back, none of that exists in our imagination whatsoever. So if you have a specific thing that you desire, you can absolutely see yourself having that thing, owning that thing, or being with someone, whatever it might be. Like that, there's no limit. There's no limit. And if you're referring to the resistance that might be coming up when you imagine something specific, this is why we want to begin to change the perspective sometimes of how we are looking at this. Resistance comes up for us because we don't believe it. Like we're trying to imagine or affirm or tell ourselves something that we are not believing. There's a pushback happening, right? Because we're taking from the 3D. We're basically bringing the limitations of the 3D into imagination because we're viewing this through the lens of I need to change the 3D. Well, I can't change the 3D because of this, this, and this. So trying to change the 3D is going to come up with resistance. Instead, practice allowing yourself to imagine purely for the sake of enjoying the experience of it. Nothing more, nothing less. Like, and just practice, just get yourself familiar with doing things and going places in your imagination. Not for the purpose of getting it to show up out here, just to see what it's like. And see if that perhaps alleviates some of that resistance. Because rest assured, whether it's something general or specific, it doesn't matter. We can imagine just the same. Let me see. Thank you, Koyarmi. Thank you. Can you give people tips who have the fear about third parties or the fear that they will never be able to manifest their SP? You also said your circumstances at the time with your SP seems impossible. I told you already at the last live session, I got movement in November and I'm nearer to my SP than ever. But this is only one fear that wouldn't ever let me go. If another man would come in instead. I'm also afraid of what will happen if the manifestation will come true. He can't really speak English, and I don't really speak his language. And when comes your third party video? Much love. Much love to you too. The third party video still needs editing. It's in the editing bay. It's in the queue. So it will be coming up. It's already filmed. But yeah. How do we navigate fear? I take it. Yeah. And I think that the things that you've listed out here are fairly common fears, things that a lot of people have struggled with or do struggle with about third parties, or what if I'm never going to be able to manifest this thing? The fear of failure or the fear of disappointment, it can be overwhelming, and it can actually restrict us and limit us to going all in. Yeah, and I've made a video talking about that specifically, how to deal with the fear of failure when it comes to our manifestation. So I think it would be helpful to check out that video. I think you can glean a lot from that video. But I mean, yeah, at the time of my journey, there were many times that appeared that seemed like it was impossible. Many, many, many times where it seemed like it was impossible. But really, when it comes to, and again, this is stemming from the fear of the 3D and being able to change the 3D and doubting in our ability as the operant power. So the first thing that I recommend, what's going to help combat this fear, is building faith. Building faith is such an important part of this journey and implementing these teachings for this very reason. If we are fearful that we're going to fail, or if we're fearful that it's not going to work, if we're fearful about any of that, it's going to just make it all the more challenging to go to the end and actually take that leap and suspend disbelief. So building faith is so important, and also why self-observation is important, because that is one way that we can begin to build our faith in the law. The more that we see the relationship between the inner world and the outer world, our faith is naturally going to grow. That also goes with testing the law, right? For the smaller things, even for the more insignificant things. But continue to every day prove to yourself that the law is in fact real. Because if we had no fear, if we knew and trusted completely that our imagination is our creative power that can shape our 3D reality, all of the other fears would fall away. They wouldn't be in existence. We wouldn't have it, right? As far as being afraid of what will happen if the manifestation would come true, well, I mean, that again points to something that you may want to focus on, as far as imagining being able to communicate with each other. Like, imagine you and your SP in communication, however that looks, whatever that might look like, whether that's, him learning your language, you learning his, vice versa. But I would be going to constructing a place where the two of you are communicating and it's with ease, without effort. Yeah. Yeah. Make sure that you are going all the way to the end in the way that you want to see it conform. Like what you ultimately desire is a loving relationship with your person and, no barriers in communication. So I would be going there and I would have that as my aim. Hi, Missy. If effortlessly manifesting, being as I am, enjoying unfolding of a fulfilled life, can manifest a specific thing, e.g., a rare car that is seen from the 3D, I can't afford. Thanks, Alex. Oh, sorry. If effortlessly manifesting, being as I am, enjoying the unfoldment of a fulfilled life, can I manifest a specific thing, e.g., a rare car? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And what you described there is perfect. Being as I am, right? Go to the I am, go to the unconditioned consciousness that you really are, and enjoy this experience. Like if you desire to obtain a rare car, see yourself driving the car, feel yourself driving that car, show it off to your friends, take it to a car show, whatever that might be, like whatever you would be doing in the case that this was now your vehicle, this was in your possession. See yourself signing the registration or the title, whatever that might be. But yes, go to that place. Go to that. Hmm. Yeah. I hope I understood the question. If I misunderstood, let me know. Yeah, go to the source. Thank you, Abby. Thank you. Hi, Missy. How long did it take you to perfect SATs? I've been practicing a lot, but I'm not sure I go deeper than a deep meditation. Thanks. Good question. Oh, God. You mean consistently? Because there was definitely a period where I was very inconsistent with SATs. Um, and naturally, I didn't really get very far with it. Uh, Once I started to be more disciplined about it, once I started to be more consistent with SATs, it was, I want to say it was at least a couple of months, handful of months. It was, but again, let me be clear. Everyone is going to be different. So whatever time frame I was looking at could be very different in your case. But yeah, even with practicing every night, it did take a while. It did take a while. But what I can tell you is that it is worth it. It was so worth it. I'd do it 100 times over again. Keep going. Let me see. So many hummingbirds. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you. Hi, regarding my career, I'm still struggling to define one thing I want. I want different things and tend to change my mind. How to choose one? uh, what to do if you're feeling indecisive? Yeah, yeah, that can be a big one. Um, I would start first from the premise of how do you want to feel, and is there any specific category or when you think first about, like, how do I wanna feel? Like, do you wanna feel excited? Do you wanna feel accomplished? Do you wanna feel more relaxed, laid back? Um, and let yourself kind of like, what excites you? What do you enjoy doing naturally? Like, if you have a hobby or something, uh, if you're into the sciences, like, whatever it might be, just start to really ask yourself, like, what gives me joy? What gives me fulfillment? And we can go from there. If you already have an idea, like if you have maybe several ideas of what you want to do and you can't pick just one, you can always meditate on it. You can always meditate on it and basically ask yourself, see what resonates. If there is one ultimately that really speaks to you, perhaps there's, one career path that is persistently coming back to you over the others. But yeah, I understand that it could be difficult when we don't know what we want to do as far as career goes. But uh, if you just continue to get clear on what you want to feel, and take note if there's something that comes up more consistently than others, and just allow yourself to meditate on it. Like genuinely go into meditation and ask yourself, what do I ultimately desire to do? You'll get answers. You will get answers. JD, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How long does how does long held trauma impact our manifestations? Good question. Good question. How long do how does long held trauma impact our manifestation? So trauma does a number to us. It does a number to us, not just psychologically, but like even in our physiologically, like our body. Um, Trauma can in fact be stored in our body. And by that I mean our nervous system, specifically the what is it? The blanking right now. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, which is basically your fight or flight response. When you have trauma that's been stored, perhaps it hasn't been processed, perhaps it hasn't been released, and it's just kind of been kept suppressed within you. Um, it can be easier to trigger the fight or flight response. We'll notice ourselves feeling more anxious more often. Um, High levels of cortisol, racing mind. It can be very impactful. It can have an effect on us, no doubt, no doubt. Which is one of the reasons that I am so staunchly for revision. Why I'm such an advocate for revision, because the past doesn't really leave us. It doesn't stay in the past. Like, we tend to just kind of sweep it under the rug or suppress it, try to ignore it, but the body always keeps the score. Yeah, which is why I'm huge on revision. Sarah, was your SP off the pedestal before the Sabbath? Good question. Before the Sabbath? Was he off the Oh, he was very much on the pedestal before. I had him on that pedestal for a very long time. Yeah. Once in the Sabbath, no, he was no longer on the pedestal. The body does keep the score. Thank you, Devanshi. Hey, Missy, how do I manifest being free of depression and anxiety? How do I talk about my symptoms with my psychiatrist and take meds without going back to the old story? Good question. Good question. Yeah, I know it can feel like a doozy with depression and anxiety. And I have made a video talking about this specifically. I think you will find it helpful. If you haven't seen that video yet, I would definitely recommend watching it. I go into great detail talking about this because I suffer from severe anxiety, pretty bad depression. How do you talk about your symptoms with your psychiatrist and take meds without going back to the old story? So that really comes to the, how do I word this? That comes back to no matter what is taking place in the 3D, we want to make sure that we are continuing to go back to that new story in imagination. We want to continue to hold that new story in imagination, regardless of what is happening outside and around us, right? And I was mentioning earlier the relationship between the 3D and the 4D. And why it can feel so tricky is because, I mean, number one, we're very conditioned to the 3D, of course. But number two, we can experience something instantly in imagination, but that's not usually how it goes in the 3D. The 3D, we're kind of on the linear time path. So things can appear a certain way. We may have to even, bring things up that were not ideal or talk about things. Like we still have to sort of go through the notions of the day in the 3D, right? But regardless, I am somewhere else in my imagination. Like in my mind, I'm already somebody who is free of anxiety, free of depression. And at times it's going to feel challenging, of course, in those moments of anxiety, of high anxiety or depression. It could be very difficult to go to that end in imagination. But that's why when we are feeling anxious or depressed, we just want to focus on alleviating that anxiousness, shutting off the fight or flight response before we try to do anything else. We try to soothe ourselves. We try to get ourselves to a place that feels more neutral or relaxed, first and foremost. But definitely watch that video that I made talking about how to deal with anxiety and depression on this journey. And just know that whatever is taking place in the 3D right now, you can already be somewhere else in imagination. And so long as you stay fixed and committed to that end, it must become expressed. It must become pictured in 3D, no matter what. Oh, did I miss a super chat? Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, thank you, Koyami. I don't see it, but I do see a question from you here. This might have been it. Where was it? Can sometimes being at the end can come regardless different than you imagine. For example, if you want to manifest you in the company you want, but maybe you end up in another company than your desired company. I want to manifest me in a music company and wanted to go to the US. But what happened, I end up in another music company instead. Sorry for my many questions. No need to apologize for your questions. That's what I'm here for. You're fine. You are totally fine. Can sometimes the end come different than what you imagined? So does it sometimes show up differently than how you would imagine? I mean, yes, sometimes things do not show up like identical to the last detail of how we visualized it or how we imagined it. But if you are talking about things that are specific, like if you know that you want to go work for a specific company and you live in that end, if you go there in imagination until you have experienced it, accepted it to be true, basically reached the Sabbath, then you will wind up going to that company. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The law isn't that it's going to just give you something else, right? If we are more general and we just say, I want to work for a music company, and maybe we don't really pick a specific one that we even wanted to go to, we just say we want to work for a music company, then yeah, I may wind up at a different place. But that's more general, right? Which is why it is important to be clear on what exactly we want and do try to be as specific as we can. But if I see myself as working for this specific company, like I can see my card, I can see it on my name tag, I can see the office, I can see myself in it, then that is what will manifest. Yeah, the law is not going to give you something opposite, I promise. Unless that's where we were actually dwelling. Oh, thank you, Ozzy. All right, did I miss anybody? Francesca, going back up. I think that was everyone. If I missed anyone, please let me know. Hey, Missy, glad I caught you. I'm at the point I don't feel like there's anything else I need to do except just be the person who lives the life I'm manifesting for myself. Is this good? Thanks. That's perfect. That's perfect. Because that's literally all you need to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And just be that person. That's it. You got it, Nelly. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Shandana. Appreciate you. So I realize I'm having limiting beliefs because I'm getting interviews with huge designers slash amazing jobs, but not the actual job. Any tips? Oh, I'm so sorry. So you're realizing the limiting beliefs that you have around the job that you want? Is that correct? You continue getting interviews, but not the actual job. Any tips? Yeah, what would it be like if you now had that job? How would your day look? How would you tell your friends and family if you called them up and told them that you got hired and that they called you back for the job? What would you be doing? Like, see as much of that as you can in your mind's eye. Experience that as much as you are able to in your mind's eye. Because regardless of whether or not the limiting beliefs are there, if you can allow yourself to get to the place where you are experiencing what you want as if it's already happened, that has to be what is outpictured. So I would ask yourself first, like, how often am I living in the end? And if the answer to that question is maybe not as often as I should, practice going there. Practice going there as much and as often as you can. By going there, I mean in imagination, seeing yourself as already have the job. Would you have a celebration with friends and family? Like, what would you do? I got an amazing job offer that I accepted with the exact benefits I wanted, but it's in another field, not the one I would like. Oh, so yeah. Well, I mean, regardless of what you decide to do, continue to go to the place where the job that you want, see it as already yours. Like, how would that be? And continue to go there. If it feels like there's a lot of resistance, then perhaps you first need to get into SATs or at least a relaxed state. If we're feeling really anxious and trying to imagine while we're feeling very anxious, that can be difficult to do. We can notice a lot of pushback. It's going to feel very strained. It's going to feel very forced. So if you are noticing a lot of resistance to imagining yourself at the job that you desire to have, try first getting into SATs. Try first getting yourself as deeply relaxed as you can. I manifested amazing job interviews out of thin air. My friends can imagine me working at high-end luxury too, but I don't know why I have a little bit of issue feeling chosen after interview. I'm impatient. Yeah. Well, I mean, that might be right there. Some of the anxiety around feeling chosen for the job, maybe it feels like there's too much competition. I mean, regardless of whether it feels like there's competition or not, you can always go in here to the place where you are already at that job. That's a state of consciousness that already exists. You just need to occupy it. And like I said, if you're noticing a lot of resistance, try first getting yourself relaxed, try first getting yourself in SATs. That should help you. Hi, Mina. Hello. Can you manifest more things at the same time? Absolutely. Absolutely. You mean more than one thing at the same time? Yeah. Yeah. We can manifest multiple things. In fact, that's what we are always doing. We're always manifesting multiple things. Mhm. Hey, Missy, I got your SP course, visualize, and after a few days, I can't focus on the scene. Is this backlash? I'm much more relaxed and not worried. Good. Good. To the last part, feeling relaxed and not worried. That's awesome. You visualize, and after a few days, you can't focus on the scene. Um, but you're feeling relaxed, right? You're not feeling anxious about it, I take it? I mean, it could be that the seed is planted. It could be that it's already impressed. Once what we've imagined has been impressed, we're not going to need to continue to imagine it. So a lot of times we're going to notice like an aversion to imagining once impressed, once planted. Like once in the Sabbath, you're not going to feel any desire or need to do techniques. So very well, what could be happening here? Hi, Missy. How do we deal with other people's negative assumptions about men/relationships so that it doesn't affect us and make us doubt about our manifestations being possible and realistic? Good question. I know that's a big one. I know that's a big one. So, how do we deal with other people's negative assumptions? First, we want to realize that other people's negative assumptions are also stemming from us because everyone is us pushed out. So, this is likely people saying things that we've heard over and over, sometimes our whole lives, to the point where it is just a belief that we have that people are this way, which is only going to continue to reinforce by showing us more, hearing more people say this thing, all of these limiting beliefs. So it's first realizing that it's all everyone is you pushed out. Nothing more, nothing less. Um, as far as not having it affect us and causing doubt, this is why we wanna make sure that we are building faith. This is why buying that pearl is so important. Getting to the place where we have trust in the law, that we are certain through experience, through our own experience and what we have seen, what we have been able to observe, that the law is real. It can feel very challenging to accept something that somebody said on a video or that somebody told you through a book, um, versus if you observe and experience the law working in your life. The latter is what's going to build faith, not the former. Yeah. But ultimately, if it feels like that's something that is coming up a lot, if there is a lot of doubt about it being possible and realistic, it points to we probably want to test this more. We probably want to get to a place where we are more convinced because we might not be. And that's fair. These laws go against everything that we've been taught. And I don't want anyone here to take my word for this. Like, I want everyone here to find out, to know, like, prove it to yourself, first and foremost. Oh, whoops. No. All right. Where was my spot? Hi, Missy. What can we do if we can't stop revisiting the old story? I feel stuck in the current situation. Yeah. Yeah. If the old story is continuing to come up for us, despite what we may have been imagining, the way that we have been applying this, if we find that it's still perhaps consistently coming up, perhaps trying a different way of imagining, right? Because the idea of when we imagine, we want to do so to reach the feeling of naturalness, to reach the feeling of this is real for me. And if that's not what we are reaching, if we are not reaching that place, if what we are imagining still feels very fake and fantasy, then play around with a different way of imagining, perhaps. Because the reason that the old story is, being insistent is because there's likely still a lot of belief in that old story. That feels more true and real to us than the desire, which is completely normal, which is completely understandable. Um, but see about playing around with different ways of imagining. Like if you've been using affirmations, try visualizing, try getting into sats first, try going into a more relaxed state, try getting into the hypnagogic state. It will feel a lot more real in that state. That I can promise. Like it's already happened. Yep. The hypnagogic state, it's the sort of medical definition of SATs, basically, the state akin to sleep. It's that twilight stage between uh, wakefulness and sleep. Do you need to be in a very sleepy state in order to do sats? Or can I just lie down? Oh, sorry. Or can I just lie down and relax and start to imagine a scene? The thing is, if I'm very sleepy, I cannot concentrate. Good question. Yeah, I know that this can be something that there is struggle. Um, because yeah, as we're getting sleepier, it feels like our mind's sort of slipping. Like it feels more difficult to rein in, um, which is very common. Note how, I mean, we do want to be in as relaxed of a state as possible, ideally. Um, so I would practice just playing around with getting relaxed, but not getting too sleepy, and see if you are able to reach that place. The reason that SATS is so recommended by Neville and other teachers like him is because it aids us in the feeling of realness. It helps it to feel more real and there's less resistance. When we are in that drowsy, feel more natural and realistic for us. As long as there's not resistance to it, as long as it's forced, as long as it doesn't feel strained, yeah, yeah, that's really the only thing. If we're noticing that our scene is feeling very forced, then we want to try to get a bit more relaxed, is what that means. Oh, are we buffering? Oh no. Oh no. And I know Sats is a weird animal. I know. I know. It can take some practice. It's something that certainly for most of us we are not used to. We are not used to it. But the good news is that everybody is capable and able to do Sats because everyone falls through that hypnagogic state every single night. My SP texted me at 7 in the morning today wishing me a happy cat Mother's Day. 7 in the morning. Am I the first thing he thinks of in the morning? Like I've been affirming. I'd say so. That is excellent, Aaron. Yeah, I would say so. I'd agree. You are the first thing on his mind if he's messaging you that early in the morning. Excellent. What should you think if all evidence shows you that you should move on from SP? Good question. Well, the evidence is just the outpicturing of our beliefs and assumptions. Everything that is outpictured in the 3D, all the evidence is stemming from belief and assumption. Like that is the building block of all of this. Hence the name law of assumption. So we don't ideally go off the evidence here, because the evidence is there because of our beliefs. So, I mean, if you no longer have a desire to be with your person, you certainly don't have to be. But if that is what you ultimately want, if that is what you ultimately desire, then we cannot look to 3D evidence. That's going to be all of our fears and doubts outpictured. Yeah. Take the attention away from the 3D, away from the 3D. Let me check my settings really quick. I got to make sure that nothing's weird happening. If you're noticing buffering, try refreshing the page. And that should help. Oh, my cat's crying at the door. Damn it. He sounds so pitiful. I had a session with a hypnotherapist last Friday, and it really made my belief in the law stronger. The subconscious mind is truly powerful. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. SATS is effectively self-hypnosis. That's, yeah. I mean, maybe we're going a little bit deeper, but that's effectively it. And yes, the subconscious mind is incredibly powerful. Let me see here. Hi, Missy. Love your videos. Huge fan. Oh, thank you. I had this doubt if you have free will. Everybody does, right? So, say if two people manifest for the same thing, what happens then? Good question. Commonly asked question. And I have made a video talking about, two people that are trying to manifest the same thing, who wins, basically. And the answer to that is in your reality, like through your eyes, what you are experiencing, it's going to be whatever you are assuming, whatever you are imagining. So let's say you and somebody else are up for a promotion at work, and you know in your bones that that promotion is yours, and perhaps they're manifesting the same thing. But in your reality, in your experience, if you see yourself in that position, if you see yourself already achieving that promotion, that will be yours. In the other person's reality, it could be totally different. Yeah. We don't live in a singular universe. We live with all of creation already finished. So every possible outcome that could possibly exist already does. And in our reality, in our experience, it's whatever we are assuming. Yeah. How to live in your 4D and simultaneously go through the everyday of 3D that shows otherwise? Good question. Building faith. If we are still taking the 3D as the real world, the fact, and we are questioning the law, we are doubting imagination as reality, then it's going to feel incredibly difficult. Yeah. Yeah. But again, if you know and trust that your 4D is reality, like you give the credence of reality to the 4D, it is just as real as the 3D, then it's not ultimately going to matter what the 3D looks like, because it's just the old out picturing. And if you know that to be true in your bones, the 3D is not going to phase you. I mean, it might be annoying, but we're not going to catch ourselves like getting caught up in it. And Neville has plenty of stories that he shares, instances of himself personally and his followers, where the 3D looked polar opposite of what he had imagined. It doesn't matter. I've certainly experienced that. Many people have certainly experienced that. It does not matter. But really, until we get to that degree of faith, it can feel very challenging to accept that to be true. Like, we might want that to be true. We might hope that the law is real. But until we know we may be easily swayed. Yeah. Imagination is real. Yes. You believe and trust that your imagination is the real world and know that the 3D is just the after effect outpicturing of the 4D. It's all trust. Imagination is real. Perfectly stated, Aaron. Perfectly stated. That's it. Oh, did I miss a super chat? Let me go back really quick. Oh, oh, my apologies. I did not get a notification for that one. I am so sorry. Where was I? What do you think about Vadim Zilan saying you can't manifest an SP, seeing as he is such an influential figure in the manifestation space? Love you lots. I mean, that's his opinion. And there's plenty of people in the manifestation space that say that manifesting an SP is not possible or it's unethical, especially a lot of the law of attraction crowd, where it's heavily emphasized that there's free will and you can't impose on that, blah blah blah. Um, yeah, um, you absolutely can manifest an SP because this has nothing to do with impeding on somebody's free will. This has nothing to do with trying to change a person because that's not what we're doing here. We're not changing anyone out here. We're only changing what we're doing in here. Nothing more and nothing less. Because what we are doing naturally in every moment, literally every moment of our existence, we're selecting a state of consciousness or a reality. We are moving in and out of these states of consciousness or reality depending on the beliefs, assumptions that we hold. So if I want to change something about my 3D specifically, I can do that because through my imagination, I can experience something different. I can experience something specific. And if I imagine it to the point of that conviction or that feeling of naturalness, if I feel natural about it, then it has to be outpictured. I will select that state. It will become the physical reality that I experience. You can absolutely manifest a specific person. People gonna say all kinds of things. But again, don't take my word for it. Test it, test it, test it. Music is a great way to aid the feeling state. I agree, Francesca. Music is a fantastic way of helping us get into a feeling state. Please reply to thank you, Ishan. Um, please reply to who? Um, to perfecting game? I'm a little confused. Oh. Oh. Okay. So it sounds like there's a third party situation and they told you something that you don't want to have happened. They said something. Let me just see. Yeah, don't accept what they told you. Don't accept it. You can absolutely change it. You can absolutely revise it. I would revise that entire conversation. Yeah. If the third party told you something that was upsetting and it was something that you didn't want to hear, and that you don't want to be true, revise it, change it, change it. Your memories are only imaginal acts, nothing more, nothing less. We do not have to hold on to these memories, so to speak, in their current form. We can change them, and we know we can change memories. We have studies that show us that we can change our memories, that it's not set in stone. I would revise it. Can it be manifested? Absolutely, it can. Absolutely, it can. Anything can. Anything can. One of the last things I am going to note is, and I'm going to emphasize this over and over and over again, but we want to make sure that we are building our faith in the law. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of, is this going to happen? How do I change this about the 3D? A lot of that is stemming from the fact that we may not believe that this is possible or this is true. And that's okay. That's understandable. In fact, I want you to question it. You should question it. But we want to make sure that we are proving it. Because without faith, we succumb to fear. Yeah. Oh, Tiki leaves. I tried signing up. Oh my God, my apologies. If there's a missed confirmation email? Yeah, if you've signed up, you absolutely should have. Let me look into that and make sure that that was received. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I will look into that. Will it work? You have to find out. Me telling you is, I mean, okay, I understand the need for reassurance sometimes. Everything is manifested. But it's going to be so much more helpful for us if we know that for ourselves. Yeah. Don't forget the weekly revision reminder. Oh, yeah. Make sure you revise. If anything shows up in the 3D that you do not want, revise it. Do not accept it. That is your weekly reminder. Yeah. I've got a masterclass coming out about revision because that's something that I get all sorts of questions about. And I know that there are a lot of people that have resistance to the idea of revision, but I'm telling you guys, it will change your life. It will change your life. If something happens in the 3D that you do not want, revise it. How to turn off logic and reason. Like a switch? Yeah, man, that'd be awesome, right? Just flip it on and off like a switch. The more you observe the logic and quote unquote logic and reason, you're going to quickly find that what you perceive as logic is actually very illogical. We have a lot of what we perceive as like rational thoughts or reasoning that is actually very irrational. You're going to see that your logic and reasoning can be absolutely bogus. Through observation, you're going to start to see all of these things that sound reasonable are actually not. They're actually not. I do have to get going here in just a moment. Missy, your skin is lovely. What moisturizer do you? Oh, thank you, Francesca. You are so sweet. I use Tatcha. I don't know if you've heard of that brand, but it's amazing. Tatcha, the dewy skin cream or something like that. It's in the purple container. It's so good. Thank you. You're sweet. Imagination is real. Yes. If we can accept that, if we can accept that our imagination is real, that it's not a fantasy, that it's not fiction, it's not just imagination, if we can accept and give it the same reality, the same sense of reality that we do the 3D, everything will change. Everything will change. I'm going to be talking about that in my video here that's coming out soon. And on that note, let me see really quick. I'm just checking. Making sure I'm not missing anything. So one second, guys. Your cat is waiting outside to say hello. he is. He is. And to be fed, of course. Do you still consider yourself as having anxiety and depression, or do you manifest out of them? I don't consider, no. I don't, I certainly don't have depression anymore. I don't have anxiety anymore. Do I have days that are stressful and annoying at times? Yeah. Yeah, those still come up. But I am light years from where I was. And generally speaking, I am in a state that feels pretty go with the flow. I am a lot more relaxed than I used to be. And that says a lot because I was ratcheted up all the time. All the time. All the time. Yeah. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I promise. On that note, unfortunately, I do have to call it a day here. Thank you guys so much for joining and being with me today. You have been wonderful. I absolutely love your questions. I absolutely love your company. If I didn't get to your question, I am so sorry, but rest assured, every week I am here on Sundays. I hope you join me next Sunday. You guys, each and every one of you, have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Much love to each of you. Until next time, take care. Don't forget the video that's coming out in just a moment. Bye, guys.